Hi, welcome back. I inadvertently cut myself off on the last video, so I guess we'll have part one and part two. So, welcome to part two of my sharing how parents can cope with their children being at home 24/7, 365 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our next question that I'm going to address is what about socialization during COVID-19 stay-at-home orders? And this actually is a really good question. It's an important topic, and I want to reframe it a little bit from the usual what about socialization that is the question addressed to homeschool families. First of all, I think that it is the job of parents to socialize their children. It starts in the home when the children are young, and it involves a wide variety of things such as manners, please and thank you, teaching children to stand up when an adult enters the room, to look at an adult or anyone when they're being spoken to give facial recognition that they're paying attention. And I know in some cultures, children are not supposed to look into the eyes of adults, but in Western United States culture, it's appropriate and it's important. I have a daughter who's an adopted Native American, and in that culture, children aren't necessarily encouraged to have eye contact with adults, but I want her to be successful in her adulthood no matter what. And so I expect that and still have to remind her of it even though she's 18. So that's just a part of socialization. I think knowing how to appropriately dress for different things. Right now, we're probably all in our pajamas because we're not leaving home, but on our farm, we have taught our kids that there are farm clothes, which can be kind of raggedy and worn out and stained. But when we go into town, especially for a meeting with other people or to go to church, we can put on our town clothes. And that way we are respecting ourselves and other people that we're with. My kids have a great piano teacher, and right now they're doing piano lessons via Zoom. But when they go to her house, she is always dressed professionally. She looks nice for her students, and I encourage my kids to dress nicely for her. So again, not maybe something thought of as socialization, but I think that's important. Uh, I once heard a really good comment on socialization and how we teach it to our kids, and that was made by Mike Smith, who is one of the founding attorneys of Homeschool Legal Defense Association. He was addressing a group of homeschool leaders at a conference, and he was kind of joking about it because as homeschoolers, we know that people ask if our children know how to socialize or what about socialization. And his comment, which just really resonated with me and has stuck for 15 years probably, is that his children are well socialized because they are with him and his wife. And that was the tack that my husband and I used when we were raising our children, is that they are well socialized because they're with us. And it's our job to teach them social skills. I often laugh and say, I'm not raising socialists. That's something totally different than good socialization. But our children need to know how to have conversation with other people. They need to know how to interact in a positive way with other people, whether it's their friends or our immediate family or extended family, our neighbors, the elders that we see in our community or at church. They need to know how to carry on a conversation, how to give people eye contact, how to respectfully answer questions, and if they don't know the answer to a question, how to appropriately respond. So when they're in the grocery store and the cashier says, "Gosh, you have a really big family. What a burden that must be." And I just graciously say, I am so blessed to have a large family. I just love all my kids, and I can't imagine not being out and about with any of them. They're just all so special to me. And then my kids know my opinion on that topic. And then I usually say something like, ask them for yourself what it's like to be in a big family. And then I have previously coached my children that you say, oh, it's great. We always have somebody to play with, or, we learn to take turns and to share, teach them to have a positive response. And unless you equip kids to have good socialization skills, they're not going to be well socialized. So during this COVID stay-at-home quarantine, I would really encourage you to work on building solid family relationships through appropriate socialization at home. And one thing that I think is important is that all family members respect the fact that the parents are in charge. And generally, dad earns the money, but sometimes mom does too. And we spend our hard earned money to clothe and feed and house kids, and they should be respectful and appreciative of that. And so I think it's important that we're teaching children as a family how a family works, because the family is the basis of society, and we live in a culture where people are disregarding the family as being important. Certainly, we're in a pro abortion culture. We're in a culture where people don't encourage marriage and staying married and working hard at marriage, because it is hard work. And so all of that is part of healthy socialization, how the family structure works, and then reaching outside of that as kids interact with their friends or our relatives. We need to help them on that. We need to teach them to have integrity and to always be doing the right thing no matter who they're with. I think it's important that they do stay in contact with their friends. And I have older children that live on their own in different states. And so my kids FaceTime them or they text them. I think that's important to keep those lines of communication open. I just do think that you should supervise somewhat your kids' use of their cell phones and Snapchat and Facebook and all of that. And certainly don't recommend it until children are old enough, maybe in their teens, to be able to handle that well. So that's, they have to learn how to socialize outside of our direct supervision. So if you train them when they're young, then they can start to learn and they will make mistakes, and then you correct them and forgive them and give them instruction and you go on. And they have to learn to function as an adult in our very toxic society. So the best place for them to do that is at home with us. So anytime you can provide opportunities for conversation during mealtime, board games, chores together, those are all excellent times to develop socialization. And it really means the way we relate to other people. If you have an introverted child who doesn't really want to communicate much, I would encourage you and suggest that you need to always be prompting questions to that child. Say, what did you learn today in school? Or what do you think of so and so? Because you need to teach them conversational skills for when they're out on their own as an adult and working or starting their own family. And then if you have an extrovert who dominates all the conversations, they have to learn to take their turn. So instead of just launching into a long spiel about everything that's going on in their life, I think they can learn to ask other people questions and get their input. So again, conversation is a great building skill for socialization. Use this time now to help your kids do that within your probably stressful family environment, because you're all together 24/7, 365. And then take outdoor breaks when you've had enough socialization. Um, Another good topic to discuss is a question regarding what should we focus on right now for our children's education while they're homebound for school. And if you have children who are doing online learning for their public, private school, then obviously they have to do that. But I think you can also take extra intentional time with your family to teach things that are of the Lord. So use this time to have a daily family Bible study or devotion together. Pray at the meal table together with each other. uh, Work on character building, and I'm sure you know all the good character qualities for yourself that you need to help your kids with. So honesty is always the best policy. Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Be a person of integrity who does the same thing when no one's looking as when someone would be looking. Show grace toward each other, apologize, show forgiveness, those kind of things. What are the fruits of the Spirit explained in the Bible? And of course, a really important one is to have joy amidst your circumstances. We want our kids to realize that this can be a difficult time, but it also can be a wonderful time because God is providing for our needs. We can be together as a family, and we can work through this. We can improve our relationships because we're practicing socialization and we're working on our character. I think quantity and quality time are both very important, and I think being intentional about your time with your family members is very important. I spend a lot of time working, writing in my office on my computer. I spend time on social media, and it is work related. So when my kids come in to my office and ask me a question, I need to practice looking at them, stopping what I'm doing and looking at them and giving the respect they deserve, because I also deserve their respect when I have to go and interrupt what they're doing. So these are things that all of us as a family can learn together. And I think, of course, the most important thing is to provide discipleship, Christian discipleship, as part of our children's education. So when they're not doing their assigned schoolwork, whether it's private, public, or homeschool work, please try to incorporate things that are of the Lord. So Bible reading, hymn singing, even playing a game like Bibleopoly, scripture memorization. All of these things are time that we now have time for and we can make time for. Think of all the time you spend in your car driving to town or doing this or that, and instead start using that time at home to build relationships that are of the Lord. I think I want to touch a little bit on what are some additional resources that you can utilize during this time. And of course, thank goodness for technology that we have online websites we can go to. We can Google topics or use whichever search engine you have to look up something. We can order things online that can help us. And so the first place that I suggest is the nonprofit organization I work for, Christian Home Educators of Colorado, is a highly respected Christian state organization in the United States. And I feel like we have an amazing mission and goal and outreach to people really around the world through some of our different platforms. So the first thing I would suggest you do is go to chec.org. That's spelled CHEC.org. And of course, it is a homeschool ministry, but it is also a ministry just for everybody who wants to have a loving, Christ-focused family. And so if you are currently, your kids are enrolled in an institutional school, I really encourage you to go there because there's just a lot of great resources that can be found there. And if you're interested in finding out more about homeschooling, you can go to their Getting Started tab, and that has a lot of great information. It is Colorado specific, but also it makes sense for around the world. On the Chuck.org landing page, at the top, there's a bar that mentions COVID-19. And if you will click on that, you will pull up a page that has a number of resources that will be very helpful to parents who are now spending much more time than they planned or maybe even want to with their kids. And, I'm that way too, guys. I need a break from my kids. So, how can we be with our kids in a positive way? And how can we also direct them to be productive independently from us? So, on that page, there is a PDF you can download, and it's called 102 Ideas for Keeping Children Busy at Home. And this is put together by a gal who's a longtime volunteer for our organization, and she's a homeschool graduate, and she's also a homeschool mom herself. And she lists just a huge range of topics and ideas that kids can do with you as the parent guiding, like science experiments and research online and things like that, or that kids can do on their own if you kind of give them the nudge to get started. And those would include, performing part of their favorite movie live in your living room, or building blanket tents, or working outside on a construction project. So that's a great first place to go. It helps every family, no matter how the education is being delivered to their children. And I think it works for all ages, preschool through high school. The gal who wrote it said she really focused on elementary and middle school. But I know in reading the list myself as I edited and proofed it, there were just a lot of things that I know my teenagers and I enjoy doing together. So go to that list. Then also listed on that page is an online learning opportunity that CHEC as an organization and its affiliate ministry Generations started putting on 3.5 years ago as a opportunity for people who cannot attend in-person homeschooling or parenting conferences to participate in them online. And typically, for the last 3.5 years, we have offered a March and an October virtual summit. These are called homeschool summits. And they, again, are not just for homeschoolers. They're for anybody who has a Christian worldview and wants to disciple their children in a terrific way that will lead to successful family relationships as well as successful adulthood for our children. We decided in response to the coronavirus pandemic that we would put on two new, well, they're actually replays, but they've been upgraded with keynotes and devotions. We would offer two summits, one in April, it's going on this week, and one the first week of May. These are free. You go to the site, homeschoolsummits.com, and you can type in /parenting, and you can start viewing it. You sign up for it. It's free to sign up for. You just start viewing as soon as it's confirmed to your email address. And then if you decide that you really like it and want to have it archived so you can watch it throughout the year, or maybe share it with your spouse or your kids or other relatives at a later time, then you can upgrade to what's called an all access pass, and that's very reasonably priced for online content. I mean, if you compared it to other podcasts and stuff, it's just a really good deal. Plus, there's a lot of free download resources that come with it. And then you can just keep watching them. So I would recommend you go to homeschool, HOMESCHOOL, summits, SUMMITS.com, and check it out. I think especially this one that's going on this week is called the Homeschool Parenting Summit. So it has a broad base of nationally, even internationally recognized Christian public speakers who are uh, considered the experts on things like biblical discipleship, parenting with discipline and love, uh, just all kinds of great things, marriage stuff, adult relationships stuff for parents with their adult children. And I think you'd really get a lot out of it. So those are found on the check.org COVID-19 bar. If you click at the top, it'll bring the page up. So I hope those really bless you. Then another site, again, homeschool related, but you don't have to be a homeschooler to access a lot of the items on the site, is that the website of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and that is hslda.org. And when you go to that site, there is a member login, but there's also a lot of resources that are just on there for anyone to access. There's a lot of good articles on parenting, helping with your kids with education. There's several that are addressed to the COVID stay-at-home orders right now. It has a lot of political information for all the countries in the world who allow homeschooling legally, and also where HSLDA is promoting legal homeschooling. In first world nations in Europe, including Germany and Sweden, homeschooling is illegal, and HSLDA is working to get legal status for homeschooling. There are countries in South America and Africa and Asia where homeschooling is legal, or HSLDA is working to get it to become legal. And it's just a great website. There's a lot of articles about helping, no matter what type of education platform your kids are learning from. There's articles about helping preschoolers, high school students, special needs students. And so I would just recommend you go to hslda.org. That really kind of wraps up all of the things I wanted to cover in this video series. So remember, there's part 1 and this is part 2. And I really recommend you listening to part 1 first. But if you came to this one, then you can go ahead and go back to that one. I want to encourage you that being with your children is a blessing. It is not a burden. There are definitely strategies that help, and having a steady routine and open, good communication and positive, productive times, especially during mealtime and recreation, family time, all of those build relationships with our kids that make living together 24/7, 365 not only doable, but very rewarding. So I encourage you to redeem this time where we're being told to stay at home so that we don't ourselves get sick or spread germs to other people who might be immunocompromised, and use it to build family relationships. You know, our children are priceless treasures, and they are the only thing we can take with us to heaven, because they are the only thing that moths and rust do not corrupt. We can't take material possessions. We can't take our beautiful farm. We can't take our whatever collection we have of clothing or cars or boots. We can't take any of that. But if we will lead our children to Christ and we will disciple them in love, they will receive Christ as their Savior and Lord, and they'll join us for all eternity. So I just encourage you that that's the number one thing to focus on during COVID-19. Again, if you have further questions and want to reach out to me via email, just go to my website, Shari, SHARI, McMinn, MCMINN.com, and you can there's a contact me button, and you can send me an email, and I try to return emails within 24 hours. So if you're in Australia, send me an email, and I'd love to hear from you. Same as if you're in South Dakota or wherever you're at. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I hope it was very edifying and a blessing.